All right, we're going to go ahead and finish up our notes on proportions for those of you that were in class today. If you haven't taken the notes yet, start from the beginning with us here. All right, so we're going to talk about solving algebraic equations, but they are in proportion form. So remember, a proportion is when you have two fractions that are equal to each other. For example, and you don't need to write this down, but let's say we know that 1/2 is the same as 2/4. That would be called a proportion. We know those two fractions are equal to each other. Now, to tell they're equal to each other, if you multiply diagonally, you have 2 times 2 here, which is 4, and 1 times 4, which is 4. Those are called your cross products, and your cross products are equal. And that is the key. That's what we're going to use to solve the proportions that we see today. All right, so let's make up some fractions using variables. Let's say the fraction a/b, we know for a fact, is the same as the fraction c/d. That is called a proportion. So if those two fractions are equal, then cross products. That means you're multiplying diagonally. Your cross products are equal. And that's how we're going to set up an equation to solve. Okay, so that means with these two fractions here, one cross product would be a times d. And it doesn't matter what order you do your multiplying, which diagonal goes first. That cross product should be the same as the other one, which would be b times c. All right, so I could write the bc first and then the ad. If you remember, that's called the symmetric property, when you just swap sides of your equal sign. That allows you to do that. All right, so let's try some of these with algebraic equations. All right, so for the first example, this is going to be your numerator, and this is your denominator. So that's a single fraction right there with a fancy numerator. We're going to set it equal to another fraction. Now, if I had something, say, like +1 over here, that would no longer be a proportion, because a proportion has to be only a fraction on each side. If you have anything else added on to that, you don't have a proportion anymore. So remember, cross products are equal, multiplying diagonally like we did up here. It doesn't matter if you start with the 5 or the 4. Diagonal that way, then diagonal that way. And you're going to show an equation, so you need an equal in between. So one cross product, if you start with the 5, gets multiplied by the entire numerator. So since it's a quantity, an algebraic expression, you need b plus 3 in parentheses. So you can see we'll be distributing when we solve. Now go in the other direction. Again, the 4 gets multiplied by the entire numerator, so you need parentheses, b minus 8. And this is very similar to equations that we have been solving up to this point. Always distribute first, so you have distributing here and here. So 5 times b is 5b. Plus 15, don't forget to go all the way through your set of parentheses. Don't forget to bring down your equal sign. Every line should have a new equation. 4 times b is 4b, and then remember 4 times -8, -32. We have variables on both sides. I usually like to bring the variable over with the smaller coefficient. Remember, you move a term over, an entire term, to the other side by adding or subtracting. Don't look at that sign. You're looking at the sign of the term you're moving, which is positive. So the opposite is a negative. I'm going to subtract 4b and make sure you're showing that on both sides. Subtracting our coefficients, 5 minus 4 is 1 with your b. You can put the 1 there if you like. The 15 is still there. 4b's are gone. Don't bring down a 32. Look at your sign in front of that. That's a -32. Make sure the sign goes with it. Now here you're going to subtract 15. So think negative 32 minus 15. If you need to do a keep, change, change, think about what you need to do to add those values together. We're going to keep our sign and add the values. So you'll get a negative 47, 15s are gone, and there's your value for B. All right, let's try another problem. Let's put our algebraic expression in the denominator this time. The process is still the same. Show the cross products. Okay? That's what you do when you have a proportion. So again, diagonally in any direction, in any order. So you can start with the 3 and multiply it by the entire denominator here of n plus 4. And that should equal the other cross product. The 4 would get multiplied by the entire denominator, so you need parentheses. And we're back to a problem similar to what we had up here on this line. We need to distribute, get our variables together on one side. So when we distribute first, we have a 3n plus 12. 4n, and then don't forget to go to the 1, plus 4. You can always pause this and solve it yourself and see what you get, and then you can play again and see if you have the right answer. All right, I like moving the smaller coefficient with the variable, so I'm going to subtract 3n. So now I have 12 equals 4 minus 3 is 1n. You don't need to write the 1. And then subtract your 4. So we get n equals 8. All right, so there's 2 examples. I'm going to do one more just to make sure we've got this. I want you guys to try doing this one on your own once you see it. There's your numerator. Okay, one fraction here, one fraction here. You're being told they equal, so this is a proportion. You need to show that the cross products are the same. Again, it doesn't matter what direction you start in. If you want to start with the 10, it multiplies by the entire denominator, so you need parentheses. And that should equal the other cross product, and that would be the 5 being multiplied by the 3n plus 3. So you can see your first line is very similar in each of these problems. You have distributing to do, then variables on both sides. So be careful here. You've got 20n. And that's going to be a minus 40. 15n plus 15. Okay, think about who you'd want to bring over. I like the smaller variable. So I'm going to bring my 15n over. He's positive, so a negative would be subtraction. You could have moved your 40 or your 15 first. I just tend to move my variables first. You have 20, you subtract 15, you now have 5 with your variable, so your new coefficient is a 5. Keep the minus 40, but over here, gone. You have a 15. We now have a 2-step equation to solve. 5 is the last number to go, so he will go over there first. They subtract, you add on both sides. You now have 55. You no longer have your 40 over here, but you still have your 5 with your n. And remember, this means multiplication, so you will divide. So I'm hoping if anyone did this on their own that you arrived at an 11. So that'll wrap up our notes for proportions, and we'll discuss it tomorrow in class, and you will have your assignment then.